Oh boy, England-Ireland. Can't wait for this one. England beating Ireland last year in the Six Nations at Twickenham. It's going to be a hell of a fixture. Can't wait to get into this bad boy. Okay, stupid intro aside, credit's got to go where credit's got to go. Ireland, I think, played an excellent game. Deserved winners. The score makes it look much closer than it was. England with scores at the 77th minute doesn't really cut it. Kind of buffers what was really kind of domination in that second half. I think what Ireland did incredibly well was the first half, there wasn't a whole lot they could have done differently. I think England did an excellent job of controlling the game in the first half, playing rugby where they wanted to play rugby, keeping Ireland pinned in their own half. I counted so many lineouts for Ireland, which kind of shows that they kept pinning them back there and playing rugby in the area of the territory where they wanted to play it. Ireland had a few opportunities in the first half. They definitely fluffed them. There were some knock-ons here, an error there, which basically meant that Ireland didn't score points that were on offer. I wrote a note, which obviously seems a bit moot at this point, that will it come back to bite them that they didn't go for the 3 points when they were on offer. They kept going for the corner, they kept making a knock-on or a mistake, they kept getting turned over. Credit has to be to England's defence in that. I thought it was excellent. You kind of went into half-time as an England fan thinking, okay, we're in a position here, as we have been in the Autumn Nations, so our hopes weren't high. We're in a position here where we're in the game. We're here, we're controlling things, the territory's going great. But I think if you're an England fan, I think you have to be honest in the regard of for the amount of control and possession and attacking and the amount of mistakes Ireland made in the first half, going in at half-half, I believe at 10-10, was it? No, it wasn't 10-10. It was 5-10 at half. Going in with only a 5-point lead, yes, you had a yellow card. Considering how the first half went, you just had a feeling the quality of Ireland, it wasn't enough points. It wasn't enough to kind of push past and really have an advantage. I mean, I thought of the game earlier today between Scotland and Italy. Italy had a bit of a comeback, but Scotland, I think, added a lot more pressure onto Italy by having a 14-point lead very early on in the game. It meant the opposition's chasing the game. I think if you put Ireland in a position where they're chasing a game, especially with a young fly half like Prendergast in there, it would have put a lot more pressure on Ireland. Those are my thoughts at half-time. The reason being, I'm thinking Ireland, with the coaches that they have, the players they have, the leadership they have, they're going to come out as a different team in the second half. You're going to have to play against a team that's going to be making adjustments. They're going to do something differently, and you're going to have to live with the fact that you're only 5 points ahead. Having said that, take a sip here. Having said that, I don't think it was necessarily Ireland that came out a different team in the second half. I think England did. What do I mean by that? The amount of mistakes that were made by England in the second half were just crazy. I think the more obvious ones were Murley, twice on the goal line, 3 times I even counted, making mistakes that just seemed panicky. Does he make those mistakes at Quins? No. Does the occasion and the moment get to him with his first cap for England? Probably. There was much less, not desire, but they had less of an opportunity because of the mistakes to push Ireland into their own half. I think Ireland are great with front foot ball, playing into the opposition half. You know that the moment that Ireland have a line out in your half, or they have a scrum in your half, or any kind of possession in your half, it's danger because of the power style that they can play. I feel like it's kind of nullified if you force them to play in their own half. You counter-attack any kicks that they make. I do think Ireland did play better in the second half as well. I can't really wrap my head around this. It felt like it was like a Titan Ireland are, that you're putting all this pressure and control on the Titan, but then the moment that the Titan has decided that it wants to wake up and actually play the game and play the sport, it's game over. And I felt like when we got into the second half, that happened. And it wasn't just like one or two things or someone grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. It was a huge combination of things. I think taking Prendergast off, who I think struggled in this game, I think that's fair to say, for Crowley, I think that was one decision. I think James Lowe started to come off his wing quite a lot. I think Bundee purposely put himself on the wing for that try. It was all these little decisions, but Ireland all of a sudden just kind of like solved the Rubik's Cube of how to break the line, how to take possession away. And it resulted in them winning the game. Fair and square, done out. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. Because I'm just looking at the statistics and it doesn't make sense. Fairly equal on metres gained. England won the turnover battle 5-1. Tackles made was equal. It was like one tackle difference. It's difficult. It just feels like it's like a level of professionalism that Ireland have, that when it's time to turn the Jets on and win, they can do that. Whereas England are still kind of reeling as an inexperienced team that, you know, can't get over the line. I mean, kind of going through the team for Ireland, Andrew Porter, very experienced, thought he had a good game, especially in the scrum. Rónan Kelleher, good game as well. Sheehan came on for him. That was great to see Dan coming on. Finlay Bealham came off. You know, I don't think he had the best of games, even though he technically won penalties at scrum time. I thought that was questionable. Please don't take that as I think England would win because of it. I just don't agree with the decision-making of the referee. Speaking of the referee, missed calls on both sides of the pitch. It's interesting that Ben O'Keefe is an eye doctor because he just does not see stuff, like, all the time. I'm glad that he got the TMO to come in and review that Tadhg Burlong hold. The Maro Tadhg thing, I think if you're an England and Ireland fan, that penalty that led to Ireland taking a 3-point lead and making it 13-10, I mean, I think as a neutral, you got to agree that was a ridiculous call. I've always been a fan of Ben O'Keefe. I know he's been put through the ringer, especially during the World Cup, but I don't think it was his best game by any stretch of the imagination. Other news stories here. I touched on it right at the beginning. England are struggling to score tries. I think it was a very positive start. They scored one early on, but it's quite an indictment on England and the fact that the only time they scored a try after that was in the 77th minute. Obviously, Ireland's defence, world class, but I think there is a question of England throughout the Autumn Nations and continuing here of they're not scoring tries, you know? And it kind of plays into this whole thing of the score wasn't run up enough at half-time for them to be able to win the game when Ireland eventually came back into it and the sleeping Titan was awoken. I do think there needs to be a complete look at goal line attack, goal line, getting in that 22 and making sure you're taking some points away, especially 7 points. I think that's starting to become an issue for England. I don't know how they solve it, whether it's some kind of set move piece. I'm just saying words at this point. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying, honestly. Like, it just feels like a professional outfit has clashed with a non-professional outfit to a certain extent. And what else have I got here? Fucking, I don't even know. I don't even know if I want to do this video. I'll be fucking honest with you. Like, it just feels like England had it. Feels like we had it, and we just let it go like a dove, like a sweet, sweet dove. Just positives. I think Ireland go from strength to strength. I think after an Autumn Nations where they haven't played their best, I think there was a lot of people that put their hands back up today in terms of Lions tour. I think Beirne had a great game. Keenan, Doris, Josh van der Flier, Jamison, Gibson-Park as well. James Lowe, Bundee for that try, who was, I think, mostly kind of controlled by the defensive line of England well, but I think he definitely recognised Marcus Smith on the side and he went in for the try there. That was great. Okay, so there's another referee thing, okay? And again, please don't misunderstand me criticising the referee as me thinking England would have won the game if we had a different referee. I don't think that at all, okay? That is the caveat for anything I say about the referee. should have said that before, say it again. However, Mack Hansen going off at 3 minutes for something that's clearly an injury, and then he's allowed back on looking at this 13 minutes later, and it was a blood injury. I don't know you. I don't know about you, bro. I didn't see any blood. You see blood? Send me some pictures of blood. Send me some pictures of blood. And then I'll back down on my point. That was poor refereeing. Guy's gone off injured. And, you know, let's think about what could happen in 13 minutes. Let's say it looked like it was a knee or a leg injury. And with something like that, unless it's like a tear or something that stops him moving, no reason he can't go off, get like a painkiller shot, something like that. I'm not saying this is what's happened. I'm just saying with the amount of time that's available. And because you've called it a blood injury, you know, that means he can come back on because you're just saying he has a blood injury. When it isn't, he clearly injured his leg. It was obviously a disadvantage for Mack Hansen to come off because Garry Ringrose had to go to wing. Ringrose obviously much more natural outside centre. I think, you know, Ireland are probably thinking England are looking to kick to the corners here, go for the high ball. Having Ringrose out there is probably not as effective as having Mack Hansen. So, you know, they're trying to do everything they can to keep him on the pitch. I don't blame them for that. But that was another example of poor refereeing to me. I do think any criticism of England's defence, I think, has to be a little bit nullified after today. There was obviously the big controversy about Felix Jones leaving. And then Steve Borthwick, bringing in his mate Joe Al-Ebd, or whatever his name is, from French second division. Bit of controversy over that. I do think the defence was stout as hell. However, having said that, it started to break in the second half. And I think anybody watching the TV would think that was probably because of tiredness, just kind of looking at the players, looking how it was going. And it reminds me of something I listened to Shaun Edwards speak about in a recent podcast. And obviously Shaun Edwards is a defensive coach for France, has done a great job being a defensive coach and the head coach for Wasps, let's not forget that. But I think he was defensive coach for Wales as well. His main point that he says is one of the main key things of being a defensive coach for your players is making sure your players aren't too tired for when they have the ball and they can attack, because that's what they want to do. That's what you want them to do. You want them to have the energy and attack. And I think maybe there needs to be a look at this review of the defence system for England in terms of, let's not sap everybody's energy all at once. You know, it was absolutely ferocious. And I think for 40 minutes in the game, it looked incredible. But then I think they did look tired. They looked tired. These gaps started to appear. James Lowe's break springs to mind. Kind of like a 7 out of 10 on the defensive front for England. Speaking of good calls, yellow card on England I think was completely justified. Cynical play outside in the 22. Key attacking area. Definitely deserves a yellow. Got no complaints to that. Good refereeing. Yeah, I think Ireland in the first half were almost a victim of their own game plan. Let me explain what I mean by that. So it was clear that Ireland at all times, if they got a penalty within the 22 or the opposition half, it was always going to go for the corner, or quick tap, instead of taking the 3 points, which, you know, I think until Prendergast came off, they did do it in the second half. Prendergast did go for 3 to push them over the top. But it almost felt like, you know, if they didn't keep going for the corner and all of a sudden they stopped doing it, it would have been a bit of a psychological break for England. And it felt like they almost got, like, hoisted by their own petard in that regard. However, it's all moot in the end because, you know, the second half came around and proved the different qualities in the teams and how they were playing. Yeah, I thought Murley had a great first half, and then he had 3 mistakes on the goal line, which put massive pressure on England. And you just can't do that. And that was it, you know? Ultimately, I think the story of this game is... I think England controlled the game excellently, but controlling the game means nothing if you don't score more points. Especially in this day and age in rugby, especially when rugby is promoted as more of an attacking sport. I think when you're attacking, you definitely have more of an advantage in terms of how the rules are going, etc. So if you control the game, that's all well and good. But when you're playing at this level, at test level, you have to expect the opposition at some point to make a break, get through, and score some points. I think realistically, if you're an international side, I would say you had a very good defensive day if you kept the opposition to under 25 points. Today, Ireland scored 27 points against England. So what does that really mean? It means that no matter how much you control the game, unless you're scoring more than 25 points, you're not going to win. Look at the bright side. At least it's not as disastrous as Wales in terms of their attacking prowess. Wales obviously yesterday scored 0-0 against the French. But there is a lack of execution, a lack of scoring points. And it almost feels like we're using misdirection to kind of like get there. Whereas Ireland, there's something that happens with Ireland where whether it's from like a high ball and they turn it over and it's quick play, you just get a sense of like they're in trouble here. Whoever they're playing against, England today, they're in trouble here. They've got the ball, they're going quickly, they know what to do with it. Whereas when England have the ball and they either have to like kick in a grubber and have someone run past somebody, or you never really feel like someone's taking a direct line and getting over the game line consistently. It doesn't feel like they're building anything. It doesn't feel like you're like, 1 yard here, or like, I'm saying yards, we'll go meters because we're not frickin' American. This is what Ireland's attack does, right? This is the gain line here, and like no matter who the ball goes to, it's like gain line success, gain line success, gain line success, gain line success, try. Whereas with England, it almost feels like we kind of like potter around, gain line goes up and down. Maybe there's a break and someone goes great, and then we potter up and down, and then we potter up and down, and then we kind of like, we break again, and then it's either goes one or two ways, right? We either like get that, as I said, that kick to the corner, and then it's a try and it's a breakaway play, or someone gets isolated, it's a turnover, and it's a penalty, and territory is lost completely. It never feels like the attack is like solely like built up and like makes sense and is justified for scoring points. And that's why they're not scoring the points. Does that make sense? Am I making sense right now? It just feels like we're not building successive plays in a row to create anything. It just feels like we're relying on some sort of chaotic play or chaos or randomness or luck even, or the opposition not being in the right position at the right time. Maybe you can take advantage of mismatches, but at the end of the day, if you're not building successive plays in attack in terms of like successive gain line successes, lots of successes there, like you're not gonna have an attacking prowess. You're not gonna have attacking freedom. So the future of these two teams. Ireland. Who are Ireland playing next week? Scotland. Ireland, you're playing Scotland. I think the question is, do you go for Prendergast or do you go for Crowley? Based off of Scotland's performance today, who I thought played pretty good, but weren't as like clinical as I thought they would be in some regard. Maybe you look to control the game a little bit more, which would be a better game for Crowley. And other than that, I don't think you need to make any other changes. I think that's it for Ireland. I think you're cruising until at least the French game, in which we'll see what happens there. And we maybe have a bit more of a deeper dive as to how they should go about it. Excuse me. England. I've said it in previous videos. I don't have that big a channel. So I'll remind you of what I said about England. Jesus. Pre-tournament, and I'll remind you about this again. I honestly think if Borthwick loses 3 games in a row, Jesus, he's going to lose his job. This is 1. Strike 1. France next week, strike 2. And then round 3, I believe, is Scotland. And that'll be strike 3. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, that's it. I got nothing else. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Well done to Ireland, the better team. We'll call it there. All right, cheerio.